two friends taking pictures of the rising full moon on a summer night.
Two teenage kids doing what teenage kids do.
When a stranger with a gun and a death wish changed everything.
It was violent, it was senseless, and I will never understand it, I will never accept it.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and unfortunately, we're all too familiar with stories about how violence shatters lives. But what we rarely see is how they are rebuilt. In a new podcast, The Letter, we relive tragedy, but only so we can hear the rest of the story. The struggle to reclaim lives, the realities of grief, and the possibilities of forgiveness.
I believe in miracles. Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, a podcast about recovery. If you know somebody who needs some help, do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. They'll help you on your road to recovery. I'm Casey Scott, and that dapper gentleman over there is Dr. Matt. Hey, let me ask you this. Before you left the house this morning, did somebody else do your hair?
No, it was all me.
Because it's kind of, if I can paint the picture for the listeners, it's parted just down that 3/4 line right there.
Right.
And it's slicked down to both sides. You look like more of a car salesman than a therapist right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I interest you in a car?
Yeah. If you can get me a license, that'd be even better.
That might be a problem.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to so this is the first thing I've done today. So my hair's still drying. And if I don't let my hair dry, slick down like this, then it's so curly that I look like Little Orphan Annie or something.
Right.
And in fact, a couple days ago, I was waiting in a very long line picking up one of my kids' prescriptions.
Right.
And I get up there, and this lady walks over to me. I thought she was going to cut in line, but she was, like in her 70s, so I figured I could take her if she was going to cut in line. And she walks up to me, she says, "Excuse me, how do you get your hair to look like that?" And this is when my hair is the end of the day. My hair's kind of curly and all flying everywhere. And I said, I don't know. This is how my hair is. And she just said, "Oh, I just would love to have hair like yours." And then she reached up and kind of scrunched it with her hands.
Yeah.
And then I said, "Oh, okay." And she walked away. And then I realized that's who likes my hair, are 70-year-old ladies. So I might need a haircut. Do you think?
No, I think you own it.
Keep going.
If we've learned anything in recovery, own it.
Own my hair. Well, I'm worried about becoming one of the Golden Girls, like an alternative.
You could be like me, where my kids think somebody threw bologna on the back of my head.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
I'm not there yet.
I've got that balding spot. So
we have similar hair.
You got a lot more.
Well, it's sticking around, but apparently I'm impressing the older set.
Yeah, buddy.
Right.
Hey, I've got a couple things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
One is, because I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg or whatever his name is listening, because Facebook is listening to everything.
Apparently.
You could back off of the memories. Just maybe take a few steps back from the memories there,
exactly.
Facebook. Because every once in a while I think life is going good and I'm feeling good about myself, and Facebook goes, "Hey, Casey, do you remember this?" And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, no, I know. Isn't that annoying?
And I just don't know how to do it. Like, because it enters my brain, so I have to give it its due notice and pay attention. But I go, I could have done without that memory today.
Exactly.
And then the other thing is, I want to say thank you, to my family, to my friends. I don't think we've talked about this yet because it was just happened last Sunday. But my girlfriend had this idea to throw me a party.
Yeah, she was really cool.
She threw me a surprise sober party.
Yeah.
For my 1-year sobriety.
Yeah, she got a hold of, she had a hard time getting a hold of me, so she called my office and got the secretaries to get my number for her. But anyway, it was really great of her to throw this surprise party at your mom's house. So this is how it goes. Everybody knows I golf with my dad on Sunday. Right.
Well, this Sunday, two of my buddies, fraternity brothers, decided to show up, and then my two brothers. So there was quite a few of us golfing. It was a rainy day, but we got through and started golfing. On the 7th hole, I was going to do 18. I get a text from my mother. It says, "Family meeting, 1:30, very important, just your two brothers, come." And so all of a sudden I'm nervous. I'm like, what is going on? And then
That doesn't sound good.
I'm playing all the scenarios in my head. I'm thinking, well, it can't be, she can't be sick because my mom couldn't hold a secret from Friday, and doctors don't call you on a Sunday and tell you there's something wrong.
Right.
And so I'm going, I'm not in trouble. What's going on? And I'm just future tripping, trying to figure it out.
Well, it's your mom. You never know if you're in trouble or not. You might be.
I probably owe her from a vase I broke in the 7th grade, and she finally found the receipt. And so who knows what's going on? So all of a sudden the game goes down, so we leave on hole 9. I didn't even finish golf. And we go over there. And so what I'm thinking in my head is, and I tell my brothers, I go, Poppy's dead. And Poppy's the dog.
Poppy's the dog.
And this guy's like 18 years old and just walks around in circles. And, I mean, he's lived a good life. But he's, my grandpa passed away about 2 years ago, and that was kind of his dog. Oh, and so I thought my mom's just having a mental breakdown because my grandpa's dog's passed away, and we got to go there and bury it, and she's going to be in tears, and we're going to have to sit there, which I'm glad to do. But, I'm thinking, this is not how I want to end a Sunday.
Yeah.
So we pull into the family house, and it's just loaded with cars. And I go, what is going on here? You guys have already done an intervention. I'm a year sober. What else are you going to talk to me about? And I go down there.
It's your
and
jokes.
It's surprise. And it's all my fraternity friends. It's all my friends. It's Dr. Matt. It's my dad. It's my mom in the same room. And that very rarely happens. Yeah. And it was just very cool to see. And they had my face on a cake and balloons. And
they literally had your face on a cake.
Yeah. And I'll put that on the Facebook coming up on this next post, but it was pretty cool, and I want to say thank you to everybody who's believed in me, who's helping me out, and giving me a second shot, and I'm giving you everything I've got.
There was a lot of love. You have a great family. You have great friends. I think it was a fun day to celebrate your achievement.
Well, I wanted to bring this letter that my oldest daughter, Presley, wrote me.
Okay.
And all my kids were super excited. I heard Frankie, her number one goal was to make Dad cry.
Yeah?
And I cried. When I walked in and saw that, I mean, I broke down. I was like, wow, this is amazing that you guys would all take this time to come and celebrate 1 year sober with me. It really means the world. But when I read my daughter Presley's letter, I mean, it really got me. The thing is that in the past 3 years, the relationship with Presley hasn't been the best. She's a little bit older, a little bit wiser, saw the writing on the wall, and it wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't where I would want it to be.
You think that because of the drinking?
No, I know it.
Yeah.
It's not think, it's I know.
Okay.
And so she wrote me this letter, and I want to read it to you. Dear Dad, Daddy-O, Father Scott. She calls me a different name every time I call her.
Okay.
I'm so unbelievably proud of you, Dad. You've always surprised me in so many ways. I've seen you grow in so many ways. Being around you is already so much more fun. I like being with you and talking more than ever. We went through a rough patch the last year. Now I can tell we are getting closer and being together more. This has been such a good year for us, and I can't wait to have many more. I like not fighting with you. I love you to the moon and back, Daddy-O. You've impressed me in so many countless ways. Here's to 1 year sober. I love you. And then she writes, P.S. I'm pretty sure Bowden is the pooper.
Bowden's the pooper?
Well, we have a problem at our house right now. Someone's not flushing.
Okay.
And I know it's not me. I know that.
Okay.
But somebody's not flushing.
Yeah.
And so that's the question of the day.
It must be a big deal if she added it to the end of that letter.
I asked everyone, I said, who's the pooper? And they all blame each other. I'm pretty sure it's Bowden because I busted him last night. And he goes, Dad, let's start tomorrow. And I said, okay, we'll start tomorrow. I go, just start flushing, buddy. Start flushing. But that goes back to tell you that my daughter, I hate it when people are right.
Yeah.
But this sober thing is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And everywhere I turn, there's these blessings. And I never thought they'd come, but it's little things like that let me know that I'm on the right road and I don't want to give up. And I want to keep pushing forward.
Letter.
Yeah. So, Presley, I love you. Frankie wrote me a good one. Bowden wrote me a great one. And here's another thing real quick. And I don't want to take up all the time because we've got an amazing guest today. But I'm getting the kids ready for school. Mm-hmm. And I go in to wake up Frankie, and she goes, Dad. I go, what? And she goes, I know what I want to be for Halloween. I said, what do you want to be for Halloween? She goes, I want to be you. Now, Frankie's a cut-up like me, and I'm thinking, oh, this is not going to be good. I don't think people are going to have a sense of humor like you think they are, honey. I go, so how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I just put some flip-flops on and put a hat and then walk around with the microphone because what you're doing, Dad, is so cool.
Oh,
and I had to go into the other room, and I started tears again. I was like, a year ago, My kids wouldn't want to be me. I didn't want to be me.
Yeah.
For the fact that, my middle child goes, yeah, I want to be you for Halloween, Dad.
That's pretty cool.
I thought, wow.
Yeah.
All right. So it's another one of those blessing things, man. They just keep coming.
That's wonderful. That's amazing. I think one of the things that you're experiencing is that, addictions affect everybody. And sobriety affects everybody. And your sobriety is bringing your family closer together. I think that's beautiful.
And speaking of family, our next guest is Andrea Sorensen. And if I've got this right, you're not an addict.
No.
But your parents were.
Yes.
So tell me your story.
Well, I guess we'll start when I was younger, growing up. It started with my dad. My dad was an alcoholic. And first and foremost, though, I want to say that my parents are both wonderful people, and they loved me. And despite the addiction and the challenges that we went through, that was something that I held on to. I could feel that unconditional love despite it all. And so I want to make sure that I paint them in a good light, in a way that just says, like, hey, look, these guys were human just like you and I. And I know that they loved me. And I have a wonderful relationship with my father now. And but it was hard growing up. So Dad was an alcoholic, and my mom at the time was not an addict, just an occasional social drinker. Mm-hmm. But my dad needed a drink. It was first thing in the morning when he got up, would drink as much as he could before he went into work. Went to work all day, and then the moment he came home, he would drink, and he would get up in the middle of the night even and drink, right? Sleepless from the alcohol. And that's just all I knew, right? He was a functioning addict. I'd never seen my dad sober, ever. But growing up, I kind of didn't realize, at least when I was younger, that's what an addict looked like, if you will. It wasn't until I was older that I realized, Dad's an alcoholic.
That was your normal.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't know any different.
Yeah. But what I knew is that Dad was really moody. It was like Jekyll and Hyde all the time. And so
which dad are we going to get?
Exactly.
Because my kids have the same thing.
Exactly. You were just kind of walking around in this, it's like walking on eggshells all the time. It was just this constant state of fear. You didn't know if that glass of spilled milk was going to be an explosion for the rest of the night, or if it was just going to be spill milk. So that was a challenge, and there was just a lot of contention in the home.
How many siblings did you have?
Yeah, so there's 4 of us now. My mom remarried down the road later, and I have a younger sister who is 15 years younger than me. So I was 15 when she was born. So at this time, it's just my older brother and my younger sister. So it's the 3 of us in the home at the time. Yeah, and I don't know, we all kind of took on different roles. I definitely am the most outgoing of the bunch of my siblings, so I felt like I would take the heat when Dad was in a bad mood, right? Because I could let it roll off my back. I've kind of always been a positive, upbeat kid. It was just in my nature, and but that took a toll after a while. So the contention in the home gets worse, and my dad's alcoholism is it's taking over our family. And so my mom, after years of trying to save him, right, to do it for him and beg and plead and whatever we could, she finally steps away and they get divorced. And my mom was like the bright spot in our family. She was this really fun, outgoing, just loving personality. Like, if you were going to a party or you were in a room with my mom, she was going to hug every person in the room. And you felt that love just pouring out of her. Even if you were a stranger, you immediately loved my mom.
People were attracted to her.
They totally were. She was very charismatic and fun. And so she spends all of this time suffering, trying to just dealing with living with an addict, right? And I think, okay, they've gotten divorced. Things are going to get better now.
How was the divorce? I mean, how did the kids take the divorce?
The divorce was brutal. It was not amicable. my dad just always wanted to talk about mom and just rehash the situation all the time. Whereas my mother was like, I'm not going to talk to you about this. She was really wise about not wanting to bring the contention into our relationship, but we couldn't get away.
I think sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
And, especially when one person wants a divorce and the other doesn't, as a way to stay
sure.
connected, to keep it into the relationship. And that's a tough thing to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a challenge. And about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half.
How old were you when they got divorced?
I was like a month away from turning 13. So at 14, almost 15, Mom, at this point, she's met my stepdad. Amazing man. He was awesome. Still is. Great. We have a wonderful relationship. She meets my stepdad and things start going pretty well. And then Mom slips at work and breaks her knee. And she goes in for knee surgery and is prescribed opioids and gets addicted to opioids. But at this time, we don't know. We just know that over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, Mom's different. And we can't quite put our finger on it. It's not till those last couple of years of high school that I think I kind of started to realize, like, maybe it's the pills. I just didn't know.
You're listening to Project Recovery. More with Andrea in just a second.
Two years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Sorensen. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
Was she open about taking the pills? Did everybody know?
No, but there were moments. Like, I remember no, she wasn't open about it. She kept it very, very secret. But I remember once going into my pediatrician because I was sick, and I remember her like exaggerating my condition, right? And I remember her just saying, I think she needs Loratab, like the ibuprofen's not cutting it. And I remember thinking, that's a little extreme. And I never saw the prescription after that. So these moments start happening, but I don't know what opioid addiction looks like. This was in the late 90s when I didn't know you could even get addicted to pain medication. So I just didn't know what was going on. I think there was definitely some denial happening as well.
Did your mom's personality, that fun, outgoing personality, change at all during those years?
It went in and out. Yeah. All of a sudden.
Kind of like with your dad.
Totally. Yeah. We started seeing, Mom was never one to be like raging like Dad, but she started to be kind of numb. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which wasn't my mom at all. She was this vibrant individual. And so she would be sleeping too much or not sleeping enough, or, she'd be laying on the couch and I couldn't get her to wake up, or she wasn't there anymore. She wasn't engaged with all of us. She started to go missing. And it was hard in high school to not know exactly what it was.
Did this affect her new marriage with your stepdad?
Yeah. And see, that was the other thing. At the time, I thought maybe all of this was coming from marital problems. I mean, I didn't know what was going on, right? And I didn't want to pry, but I remember trying to talk to my mom about it. And a lot of it she would blame on the relationship with my stepfather. And obviously, she just wasn't owning up to her addiction.
Addicts are good at the blame game.
Oh, yeah. Really good at it. Yeah.
I mean, they could turn anything into an excuse to use.
For sure.
Oh, it was. Yes. So, again, at this time, it's not discussed. We do not discuss that she's using pain pills. It's kind of foggy. Like, I go back and I look and I think, Andrea, like, how did you or your stepdad or your siblings not call her out on it? But we just didn't know, you guys. Like, it just...
Well, I think for a teenager, I mean, you're at a time in life when you're supposed to be focused on yourself.
Yes.
And that adolescent brain is focused on friends and doing your own thing and the education about that. So I think it would be very unusual for a teenager to understand what was going on at that time, but knowing that something's off. Mom has changed.
Exactly.
She's really not available. Her personality comes in and out. It must have been kind of lonely and disturbing for you. I mean, what was that like as a teenager, not quite having mom there in the ways that she was capable of?
Yeah. Well, she'd come in and out. So I had her there for some moments, and I felt like she was still at this point where she could turn it on and be there for me if I really needed her, like moments of distress or whatever, but it wasn't consistent. And all of a sudden I went from having like dad who was the one who was the addict and struggling, and I felt like I could always go to mom, to then not having that there, and not feeling like I couldn't go to her without it being turned into something big, right?
Yeah.
Something dramatic or... So I graduate from high school, and I'm itching to leave home at this point.
How were your brother and sister dealing with it?
Yeah, well, my brother, when my parents... So my brother is my half-brother. He was from my mom's first marriage. So when my parents got divorced, he moved out of the house and went and lived with his father. So at this point, it's just my sister and I, and we're not really even talking about it. Like, the issue was still more focused on dad, because his anger was just so much more intense and such a bigger part of our life at that point, that it was, this is what's going on with dad, and this is what's affecting me more on an emotional level every day. Walking in the door, the explosions.
You spent most of your time with your mom? Did you?
My parents had joint custody. Mm-hmm. We would live 2 weeks with dad and 2 weeks with mom. So we'd go back and forth, and that was a trial in and of itself. So I leave home thinking, like, I got to get away. It's time for Andrea to live her life, right? I'm trying to find myself, and I just feel this real strong impression that I need to go serve. And so I go join AmeriCorps and CCC, which is like the Peace Corps, but it's based here in the United States. And so I leave, and I have the best year of my life up to that point. And I have some really amazing experiences. I get to serve on a disaster relief team in New York after 9/11, and I'm just doing all the things at 18 and seeing the world and, seeing this country, and really having an opportunity to participate in outreach. And I'm just finally free. This is the first time in my life that I finally felt like I didn't have the weight of my parents' problems on me every single day. And yeah, when you asked me what did it feel like in high school, that's what it felt like. It felt like, I was trying to be, I was, the student body vice president, and I was involved in all these activities at school, and only my closest friends knew what was really going on. But out in front of everybody, it was always the put on the face, Andrea, everything's okay, and just doing what I could to stay positive. And so this is the first time in my life I get away from the pressure of the addiction and the sadness that comes with that. And it felt amazing. But while I'm there, I remember getting a phone call from my stepfather. And he is talking about my mom, and that he thinks things are getting worse. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Are you sure? I'm totally in denial. Like, I don't know, maybe it'll be fine. I don't think it's really the pain pills. Just, again, not having that education. When I look at the education that we have now about opioids, and then, it's night and day. Like, had we had the resources that we had now, and people being vulnerable like we do now, I think my mom's story would have turned out different. I think.
So you got a call from your stepfather, and you're in denial. He's trying to figure it out. You're halfway across the country and trying to figure out what you can, if anything, do, right? Yeah,
and at this point, we both don't know what to do. And I think both of us are kind of in denial, like, I don't know. Like, you hear about rehabilitation centers for alcoholics, or you hear about addicts, and maybe you're thinking street drugs, and that's the junkie on the street. That's not my mom, right? So we don't know what to do. So we do nothing. I talk to her. I stay engaged. We're on the phone all the time. I come home from my term of service. I'm gone for a year. I meet my husband. I start living my life, having children. But mom's addiction is just within 1 year. Let's see. We got married in July of 2003. And in February of 2004 is when it comes out. My dad has a house fire. And he gets third-degree burns on the palms of his hands, and he's in pretty serious pain. This is kind of a rock bottom moment for my dad. Since this time, he still drinks, but the anger kind of left him after this. This was a big wake-up call for him, and our relationship has been great since this time. He has this horrible fire. My husband and I are going over and trying to take care of him, treat his wounds. Mom comes over and brings him a casserole, and I get a phone call from my dad the next day, and he says, "You're not going to like this. I know you don't want to talk about your mom, but I need to tell you something." She came over, she brought me a casserole, and she stole all of my morphine pills.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so that was it. Like, that was the day. That was the moment we realized, like, okay, we can't be in denial anymore. Like, Mom definitely has a problem.
Up to that point, had you ever really confronted her about it? You said you talked to her a lot, but
no.
Kind of beat around the bush?
It was always,
yeah.
What's going on? How are you? Are things okay with you? And Brad, my stepdad, are they...
So you were kind of giving her a chance to talk, but
totally,
of course
trying.
She's in denial probably as well.
And again, me not understanding what opioid addiction looks like.
Right.
So,
and by the way, I mean, confronting her probably wouldn't have done any good anyway.
No.
I was just curious if you guys had really talked about it yet.
So, of course, though, in our lack of education, knowing what to do, Mom steals the pills from Dad. So what do? Well, the next day we confront her, right? Hey, I know that this happened. She totally denies it. We are persistent. We're there for several hours. And she finally breaks down and admits what's going on.
And what did she say?
She said, I'm an addict. I've been taking these pills since I had my knee surgery.
And how long had that been at this point?
Oh, gosh. Well, the knee surgery... This probably would have been 6 years. 6 years into it, that she had kept this addiction pretty secret, So it was a long time. It was a really long time. So we don't know what to do. We didn't really have the means or the funding to go to an expensive rehabilitation center. We just didn't even know, what do you do? So we took her up to the hospital, and they put her in a detox center. And I remember that day taking her. I was alone, and I don't remember the circumstances why I was the one taking her up to the hospital, but I just remember bringing her in, and I remember them taking everything from her, removing her shoelaces, all of those.
Belts? No, I've been there.
All those things.
Been there, done that, yeah.
Just watching this happen to my mom, right? And I'm the one bringing her, and just feeling the pain of that role reversal of okay, I got to take care of her now. And that day I took on more responsibility than I should have. I took on responsibility for something that wasn't my responsibility. And then for years, that really affected me.
Carried it.
Totally. Yeah. So I just remember them taking everything from her and giving her a hug and watching her walk through those doors.
What was her attitude about being there?
She didn't want to be.
She felt forced?
Yeah. Oh, she totally felt forced, right? This was us approaching her about this addiction, not her coming out and telling us. So she goes into detox, and obviously since she feels forced, it doesn't work. She gets out of detox and comes home, and then this pattern continues for a while. I think she did 3 or maybe 4 different times in the detox center, but never followed up with treatment, with any kind of counseling, no rehab, no support groups.
And I think that's something that people really don't know about a detox facility.
Yeah.
Its main purpose is to get you off of whatever you're
It's in the name. Detox.
That's all it is. Yes.
But after you leave there, if you don't leave with an aftercare plan, be it where I went to Pinnacle Recovery or somebody goes to an IOP, intensive outpatient,
right?
The chances of you falling back into your same old patterns are pretty high.
I think near 100%, because you haven't really addressed the issue. You haven't really gotten through understanding why the addiction's happening, and provided a change in behavior and thinking over time. I mean, that's what you're still doing a year later, is learning to live a sober life. And that was something that obviously your mom didn't. Well, I assume they gave her, direction on things she could do, but she didn't follow up. And
no,
yeah,
there was no treatment plan, and I'm not here to knock detox centers by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but I mean, that's a place for improvement. I mean, obviously, in the end, it comes down to whether a person is willing to do a follow-up plan or not.
Yes.
But the other thing is, if you go into a detox center, on your own accord or whether help from your family, if there's nothing from the court services to say you've got to do this, then you don't really have to do it.
Right.
It's
voluntary.
No.
A lot of times, because of your courts will say that. I mean, I went to Pinnacle on my own accord. It wasn't court ordered, but I knew there was something there. But there's a lot of times people go, no, I just got to get out of whatever situation I'm in right now, and then I'll figure it out and get back to running and gunning.
Yeah, and that happens all the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. So she comes out with no tools, really.
Right.
And we're all thinking, well, you went through detox. Clearly, you're gonna choose us.
Fixed.
Yeah, totally. And then us being uneducated, her being uneducated, the cycle just repeats, and the disappointment repeats. And then
you said something just now.
Yeah.
You said you thought she would choose us. Tell us what you mean by that.
Gosh. That was totally the hardest part in this whole experience. I'll fast forward so we know it's on repeat. This cycle of going into detox, coming home, and just kind of repeating it year after year. And the last time, things get really bad. Her addiction gets to a point where she's taking 30 to 40 Loratab a day.
Wow.
She had a job at a grocery store and stole money from the cashier, from the till. And thankfully, at this point, the owner of the grocery store did not press charges. It's a small town grocery store in our neighborhood, and I think he just kind of had some compassion for my mom. But those fears that you live with all the time, are they going to go to jail? Are they going to get caught? Like, they're just constantly weighing on you.
No, just, I mean, 30 to 40 Loratab a day. like how's she getting supplied with this? Is this ruining their finances?
Yes.
She must be buying these on the street.
It's ruined finances. I mean, honestly, I don't know. There were times where she'd be gone for a while. And I don't know how she got her hands on it.
Yeah.
I don't. A lot of it was doctor hopping, without a unified database of how many times you've visited the doctor and what prescriptions you've got.
And thankfully nowadays that's improving quite a bit, where it's harder for somebody to do that. Not impossible, unfortunately, but much, much harder. But back, even just 10 years ago, that was still pretty standard practice for a lot of addicts.
Yeah, so she'd go to different ERs, different Instacares. That's what she would do.
Whatever she needed to.
Yes, exactly. Whatever she needed to, because she needed it to survive. So things get bad, like you mentioned. I mean, she exhausts all the finances. The marriage is in shambles with my stepfather. She leaves and she goes and moves in with my grandmother. And she tries that. And then eventually, grandma has to kick mom out too, because she's just not mom anymore, right? She's an addict. She's surviving. So she's homeless. She's living out of her car. And I'm watching all of this happen, and I'm just broken because I just kept thinking, this is not my mom. I never in a million years would have pictured my vibrant, beautiful mother homeless, and yet here she was.
And was this, wreaking havoc with you as far as did you feel obligation or worry?
Yes,
or
I was constantly worried. And here I am, this wife and mother to young children, and it's affecting the way I am dealing with my own family relationships. I can't be as good of a wife. I can't be as good of a mom because my head and my heart are over with my mom. I'm constantly, she called me 10 times a day for years. Years this went on. I'm trying to be a counselor on the phone and trying to give her a pep talk every day and trying to talk her through it. And sometimes she's coherent and sometimes she's slurring her words and she's not making any sense. And I'm feeling so much responsibility to be the rescuer. Like, if mom can't fix herself, well, I'm going to fix her myself. I'm going to do it for her. I've always had like that go-getter type of personality. There isn't anything that I've ever put my mind to that I couldn't conquer. But this was it. And so mom's in a really desperate place. She drives herself to my brother's house, I think just for this cry for help. And she slits her wrists and attempts suicide. And my brother finds her, rushes her up to the hospital, and they save her. And then she's in detox again for a couple weeks this time in the psychiatric ward. And at this point, I'm living in Seattle, so I'm trying to deal with all of this from states away. But it's my life all day, every single day. Like, it was just this on the phone constantly. I might as well have had it glued to my face.
How did your husband take this?
My husband's a champion. My husband is the most understanding, loving guy. I know it had to have taken a toll on him, but he was just trying so hard to support me. But he didn't know what to do either. He's never dealt with addiction. And so he tried his best to just fill in the gaps that I was leaving because I was trying to save mom.
So he stepped up with parenting
and that
sort of thing.
Yes, amazing. Yes.
See, this is the rippling effect of addiction.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times when you're in your addict's brain, you think it's just you. Why are you so mad at me? I'm doing I imagine how hard it is for you. How hard is it for me?
Yes, that was like our conversations all the time on the phone. And sometimes I wanted to strangle her. Like, Mom, like, do you not understand how this is affecting everyone around you? But it just didn't compute. It was always very much all about her.